welcome everybody to the great debate, the battle of the regions, and it's a semi-final between the Algarve and Central Portugal, of course, with Jerry Lawler representing Central Portugal and Paul Richards representing the Algarve. And I think, Paul, you are ready to go first. When you do, I suspect questions will be stimulated about the Algarve. Those who are in favour of moving there or have it as their first choice might want to just affirm those choices. Those who aren't so keen on the Algarve might want a second opinion from you when it comes around to asking a few questions of you. And there will be a chance to do that, everybody. So over to you then, Paul, who is kicking off the semi-final this evening. How are you feeling, Paul?
Oh, I'm really nervous. You can tell, yeah.
Okay. Well, you're hiding it well if you are, I have to say. Is it something to do with that beautiful sunshine behind you?
Yeah, we do get a hint of sunshine here, I must admit. Yes.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Jerry, I'll have to ask you to refrain from...
Sorry.
Yes.
Was this guy interrupting me?
Sorry.
Okay. Back to Mr. Richards then in the Algarve.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Algarve. I think, first of all, I'd like to thank Expats Portugal, because this has been coming up every year, and it's always difficult. If you made the decision to come to live in Portugal, where do you come to live? And I think there are so many factors. I mean, we've got Hank in Porto, we've got Trevor in Lisbon, Astrid, who unfortunately is no longer with us, who's in Gento, and we've got Jerry in Central and myself in the Algarve. And, you know, nobody's wrong, but it's got to be, it was right for me to come here, it was right for Jerry to go to Central Algarve. But it is a personal choice, and there are many, many factors which contribute to where you should actually live, and you have to prioritize that. And I don't mind, anybody can live anywhere in Portugal, I don't have a problem with that, but it's a personal thing. I think anybody who has taken the courage to come and live in a foreign country, be it Portugal or any other country, it's a brave thing to do, and you need to get it right first time. And my suggestion to anybody who is going to come and live in Portugal is come here first and test it. You can get all the advice in the world from things like YouTube, you can talk to people, and it's good advice, don't get me wrong, but you can't be experienced of being here. And that is something that's worth 10 times the advice that people give you. And I would say try and come at more than one season, try and come in winter, try and come in summer. You've all got at least, you've got 90 days, whether you're as a visitor to come to Portugal. And you may say, well, it's money, it's a lot of money to come, but the money that costs doesn't count at the money that could save you if you got it wrong and went to the wrong place. So visit, spend time here, talk to people. That's what I did. We set off 10 years ago. We'd made the decision to, yeah, Portugal's great, we're going to go live there. And that's a big choice. Suddenly it's a reality choice. When we started off in Tavera, which is on the eastern side of Portugal, I drove across to Sagres in the west. I went right up to nearly the Spanish border, and then I came across the eastern side and came down the eastern interior of Portugal. And for us, the conclusion that I came to was the further north I went, the cooler it got, and the further south I went, the warmer it got. And for us personally, that was a decision that made me pick the Algarve, really. I mean, people come to the Algarve, oh yeah, I'd like to live here, but living here and holidays are completely two separate things. And you have to get the basic rights for your requirements. And nobody's the same. We all have different sort of things that are important. But I think spend time here first. That's what I would say. Rent, don't buy, rent. And then you can walk away if you don't like it. But travel. I spent 2 months doing my journey, and I came, as I said, the Algarve, for personal reasons, was right for me. I'm sure for Jerry, Central is great for him, and for everybody else, it's the same. Nobody's wrong in this, but we live here, and we're giving you an honest opinion of why we chose the place that we live. So Astrid, if you could possibly run the first little video. And this is for people who have not been to the Algarve.
Oops. Hmm.
Technical problems.
Right.
The screw up is unfortunately not hearing. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Paul. Just incidentally there, I don't think we were getting any music. So it was a beautiful but silent presentation of the Algarve there. And people were, I didn't speak up because the camera would have come to me instead of seeing the beautiful visual. So I hope you managed to see that. And I understand there may be a second video, which again, we may have a silent movie rather than with music there. So back to you, Paul.
Yeah, apologies for that. Probably some of the rules of YouTube may forbid us to put some music on, but unfortunately, in the slowness of the film too, it was a little bit quicker than under normal circumstances.
Well, certainly very beautiful and excellent work from you there with the photographs.
Well, easy for me. But I mean, the thing that we try and show is that, all right, we discussed this in the past about the Algarve, and there are over 200 kilometers of coastal line, but most of that coastal line, you can get to it. It's not, it's not restricted. There are so many boardwalks, and it's the feeling of space sometimes, even though in the busy seasons of July and August, there are places that are so fantastic. I mean, I've just spent quite a lot of time on the eastern side of the Algarve, and it's the secret of the Algarve, I think, to be honest with you. There's some beautiful places there. You can walk on beaches, and even in the peak times, they're very quiet. And if you're considering to live in the Algarve and you're on a reasonably tight budget, maybe some of the eastern parts of the Algarve are very, very cheap to buy. It's not like you're in Villamora or around San Rafael or some of the bigger posher places where the prices are a little bit crazy. Astrid, if you could put the slides on so we can show them one by one. So the first one is basically showing you where the Algarve is. We've got, it says Villa di PPO on the left-hand side, which is Sagres. So that's the most westerly point of the Algarve. In fact, it's the most westerly point of Portugal and of Europe, actually. Again, it's a quiet area. It's not very busy. So again, if you're thinking of wanting to go somewhere where it's quiet, then that's the place. As you can see, we've two big roads. We've got the A22, which is the motorway, and that runs from Lagos right across to actual Spain. And then, of course, adjacent with that, we have the A22. If you could put the next slide on, please. This is Sagres. So you are right in the bottom corner of Europe as you look at that place there. The next slide, please. Now, this is the bridge. If you're on the eastern side of Portugal, it's the bridge across to Spain. So you just drive straight across it. No restrictions, no customs. You just drive across, no charge. It's, you know, I'm not sure about that. There might be if you come from the A22. But you can be from the side of Portugal, you can be into a place like Ayamonte, which is in Spain, and you can be there in less than 15 minutes. And of course, there is a day ticket from Villarreal to go across on the ferry. So Spain, not a problem at all. Next slide, please. Now, I put this in because we all talk about areas of the north and central and the history and things like that. But this little bridge is a Roman bridge, and it's in a place called Padern. And Padern is about a 20-minute drive from Albufeira inland. And this was sort of reconditioned as early as 1711, but it dates back to 711. So it's a pretty old bridge. And it's next to the Padern Castle. And the walks around there are fantastic. If you're into nature and you want to look at birds or flowers or things like that, it is unbelievable. And not many people go. It's not a well-known area. And that's Padern. There will be some slides a little bit later on showing you a little bit more detail. Okay, Astrid, thank you very much for your help.
Do you want the last one?
Is there another one? I can't remember.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
another
Put it
one.
on, put it on. Ah, the video, yes. Okay, again, sadly, we don't think we'll be getting any music, but this is more up to date. This is Alvo, where I live, or near there, 15 minutes from there. It's a little fishing village. It's not quite as busy as the big ones. Again, this is going back to near Albufeira. This is a lot of time. For the first 4 years, this is where I lived. And then I moved to Albufeira. San Rafael is a beautiful place. It's a very known, well-known beach that all the people go to. There it is, its beauty. It's a fantastic place. And I used to live about 100 meters from there. This is the next bay on, which you can walk to on land, or you can go around by paddle boat or whatever you want. As you can see, the colours in this part of the Algarve are absolutely beautiful. Beautiful red rocks. They're not granite, it's soft limestone. And the scenery is absolutely incredible. This is it. And of course, any water sport you want, it's there to do. And of course, the water's warm. Now, this is back to Padern. This is the water mill that was there, but there's no water anymore. It's a beautiful place, make a lovely restaurant. And you can walk around this area. It's a fabulous secret. This is the bridge I was talking to you about. This particular one was done up by an artist in Albufeira one year that I was there. But it's still there, it's structurally firm, you can walk across it. And there are different walking routes all over the place there, and they're all really well marked, so you wouldn't get lost. And then that's Mercy de Pera, which is just up the road from Albufeira. And of course, this is our capital, Faro. This is where all the planes come into, the big airport, one of the 3 airports we've got, and the famous marina. So it's a big place. People neglect it, actually. We do grow wine, as I said last time when I was on the screen. Becoming quite big actually now is Algarve wine. It's my local bar. There's lots of bars like this, and the prices aren't. Once you get away from the main area, they're quite cheap. This is another beautiful place. Again, we're going a little bit west here, and this is the famous bridge in the Algarve that goes across near Lagoa and to Portimao. So that's the slides and the little video. I'll just say, to give you an example, one of the reasons I came to Portugal, I could have lived everywhere. I've worked and lived in Greece. I've worked and lived in France for 15 years. UK, obviously, and I decided to retire here in the Algarve. And it's not just the weather. I mean, that's fantastic here, but it's the people. And I'll just give you a very quick example. We were in a restaurant one night, and I knew the owner very well. And a family of Portuguese came in, and it was clear that they had a little boy with them. And it was clear it was his birthday, and he was a big smile on his face. And they all came in, and the usual thing. And then the lights went down, and the big cake arrived, and the little boy had to blow the cake out. And we'd sort of smiled at the little boy and waved at him, and we got his attention a little bit. And suddenly, after the lights went back on, he started to whisper something to his mother. And we thought, oh. And then he cut the cake, and he actually brought us a piece of his cake. And for me, that was something so special. He didn't know us. And he thought that's one of those moments in life where, oh, I'm so glad I live here. I really am. And it was a touching point. And of course, then we joined them for the rest of the night, and we had a fantastic night. My time's nearly up. I've only got a minute left, just over. All I can say to everybody, make a choice, do your homework. You can live anywhere in Portugal, but try and get it right the first time, because the cost of doing it afterwards is immense. Experience Portugal first, then buy or rent first. And welcome to Portugal. And don't leave it too long, because life is very short, believe me. So get here as soon as you can, enjoy the rest of your life, and enjoy it here in Portugal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul Richards there. A smattering of applause. Although people are muted, I'm hearing and feeling that coming from all around the world there. Very nice, very restrained, very gentle, beautiful visuals, and very cheekily taking Jerry's catchphrase at the end there as well. Jerry, I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't notice that one, Carl, but I did
welcome
notice.
To Portugal snuck in.
Oh, the welcome. No, okay, all right. I'm also slightly concerned that he had an assistant, the lovely Astrid. So I'm looking forward to Astrid assisting me in a moment.
But thanks, Paul. Great job. And we've got some questions that are coming in, but we'll come back to those after Jerry's had a chance to put his case.
Paul, it was a great presentation. Thank you very much. I did notice, though, on the pictures of the beach where you take the train across, and you had a picture of a train. I happen to know that's on the way to the nudist beach. Was that where you were going?
No, that is not true, isn't that? That is to Burrell.
That's Burrell. You go down to the sea, you turn right, and that's the nudist beach.
Well, they stopped doing it when they heard you were coming, Jerry. So
it's been quite restrained and easy going so far. I'm feeling a little bit of edginess now, though.
Okay, now, Astrid, would you mind running my video for me, please?
I don't have your video, Jerry.
Exactly, that's my point.
What about the book of the famous nudist river beaches of Central Portugal? Have we got that to hand as well? Or maybe no. Right, Jerry, I think
it's somewhere.
You're sparking up your presentation there. There we go.
There we go.
Ready to rumble himself.
Okay. Okay.
So thanks again, Paul. Great job. We'll come back to some questions tonight.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Okay. Well, thanks for that. My job now to talk about Central Portugal. But I have a little story of my own just to share with you first, which is that I actually did live. I bought a house in Cabanas back in the Algarve back in 2005. You can just about see the picture of it there. It was a holiday home. And I had 10 years of wonderful holidays in and around Cabanas when my girls were young. We had a fabulous time, and all that I could relate to all those pictures that Paul showed us, and really enjoyed our time with that. I then moved to Portugal permanently in 2015 and settled into this home. However, I became disenchanted with the area, and there are 5 key reasons for me, and these are my sort of personal views. I found the area of East Algarve is transient with different populations in winter and summer. I didn't really realize that when I was there on holiday, but obviously I realized it once I'd spent my first winter there. I found that many of the services, the local services, tend to cater for the tourists and not necessarily for the residents, which I didn't enjoy. I often encountered two price levels, one for expats and one for Portuguese. There is an assumption in a lot of Portugal, but I think particularly in the Algarve, that all the expats are multimillionaires and can afford to pay higher prices. So I didn't enjoy that experience. Very little in the way of history or culture, and I noticed somebody asked a question about that, and hopefully I'll sort of address this whole area as we get through this presentation. And of course, the cost. Now, I agree with Paul that East Algarve is the less expensive part of the Algarve, but even so, and I will demonstrate this, the cost of property compared with the cost of property in Central is extremely interesting. So I moved to Central in 2017. I sold that house in the Algarve, and I sold it for more money than I paid for this house, which has much bigger in size and 2 acres of land and a pool and gosh knows what else. I was very happy that I made that transition. So let's start a little bit with scale. This is the best map I could find of Portugal superimposed on the United States. And isn't that interesting to get the perspective of the size of Portugal compared to the size of the USA? And in fact, Portugal is pretty much equivalent to the size of Indiana. So let's start with that and hold that thought. That's the scale of what we're talking about. Now let's look at the regions. And these are the regions we've been debating through these webinars. The North, championed by Hank, Central for me, Lisboa and the area around Lisboa by Trevor, Alentejo by Astrid, and of course the Algarve by Paul. Now, we're going to talk tonight about Central, which is 30% of the size of Portugal or Indiana. So that gives you some idea that nowhere is too far in Central, nowhere that I'm going to cover, anywhere that I'm going to cover, you can get to within fairly short driving or train trips, and certainly all doable within one day. We have 82 people per square kilometer, which is pretty good. Although bearing in mind that these are the main cities, and you can see the populations there, and of course a lot of the people live in the main towns and cities in Central. Now, much is talked about the weather between Central and Portugal, and here's some interesting information. In January in Central, we can see around 14 degrees centigrade or 57 Fahrenheit. In August, that goes up to 32 degrees centigrade or 90 Fahrenheit. In the Algarve, it's slightly warmer in the winter at around 16 degrees, but actually slightly cooler in the summer at around 29 degrees. Now, these are just statistics, obviously, average statistics. But I do think that's quite interesting because it's often thought that if you want the sunshine, you must go to the Algarve. In fact, we have really pleasant temperatures here. The key difference between Central and Algarve is that in Central at night, it cools down, and it cools down quite significantly, which makes sleeping very comfortable. In the Algarve in the summer, it's often the case that you need to run air conditioning just to be able to sleep comfortably. So keep that in mind, point one. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about property. I had a look to see what's available on the market today, and I found this very nice house in East Algarve near Tavira. Remember the less expensive side of the Algarve. 4-bedroom house, 4 bathrooms, no garage, and garden that you can see in the picture. This is on the market right now for 985,000 euros. And then I found this house near Aveiro in Central, exactly similar size, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. It does have a 2-car garage, but it also comes with 10,000 square meters of land with a clear water stream, and it has outbuildings. This house is on the market right now for 480,000 euros. What a difference. Isn't that interesting? And if you come down in budget, I found this house in Cabanas, where I used to live. And in fact, this house is similar to the one that I owned in Cabanas. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, garage, small garden, and upper terrace. This is on the market today for 470,000. I found this house in Leiria in Central, same size, bigger garage, otherwise very similar. And this is on the market today for 205,000. So we're roughly talking 100% difference in prices, which is very significant between these two areas. I wish I still had my house in Cabanas and watching it appreciate in price. So something I love to do in Central Portugal is eat and eat in the cafes and restaurants that provide the prata de dia. And this is a very standard thing to do here, whereby a 3 or 4 course meal is available at a very low cost. And these are the kind of things that you would get to eat. Very, very popular to have grilled sea bass, peri-peri chicken, of course, pork alentejo, which is my absolute favorite dish in Portugal, pork with potatoes and clams in a stew, roast beef with stuffing, and of course the very traditional caldo verde soup. Now, I took a look today at the three restaurants in my area to see what they had on offer, and these were the menus I found. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see that for 12 euros, I could have a quarter liter of wine or a beer or a soft drink, bread and olives, chickpea soup, sea bass, turkey, barbecue chicken or pork, choice of fruit and dessert, and coffee, all for 12 euros. And this is part of the way of life in Central Portugal, to get out there and enjoy the benefits of these cafes and restaurants that provide this dish, the prata de dia, during the day. So much so that we certainly don't eat out every day, but we have changed our eating habits so that we have our main meal during the day, and therefore we can take advantage of these great deals when we choose to. We're not talking about Michelin quality food here, but we are talking about home cooked, non-processed, slow food, and there's nothing better than to while away a couple of hours over a very pleasant lunch with some friends in Central Portugal. Now, I'm going to take you on a little trip around Central. I don't have the elaborate videos that Paul had because I don't have an assistant called Astrid. So I've just got some pictures. But I'm going to take you through what I consider are the top 10 towns in Central. We start with Aveiro, known as, Carl?
That would be, Jerry, the Venice of Portugal.
Thank you so much, Carl.
Well, there is a sign in Venice as well, which says the Aveiro of Italy.
No, there isn't. That sign doesn't exist. I've been to Venice. I've checked it out. It's not there. And I think it really is an exaggeration to say that Aveiro is the Venice of Portugal. However, it is still a lovely spot. The canals running through, and you can ride these boats. And most interestingly, take a trip over to the island where the candy-striped houses are. I don't have a picture of them, but I think there's a picture on our website of the candy-striped houses, excellent restaurants and lovely beaches to explore around. So there we are, that's Aveiro. Coimbra, my nearest city. Coimbra is the former capital of, is the original capital of Portugal. And in fact, the first 2 kings are buried in one of the churches in Coimbra. It's also home to one of the oldest universities in the world, and it's a must-see, and particularly to visit the library in that university. The library is stunning. And then we have Tomar. Can everybody see this? Or because I have screens. I move that?
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. I think most people are. And if you can't, let me know.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. Okay. Now, Tomar is the home of the Knights of the Templar and is famous for the monastery created by them for the pilgrims who would pass by and need safe security back in the day when we didn't have hotels and holiday inns and so on. But also, every 4 years, Tomar holds a tray festival. And this is a picture of the ladies and gentlemen dressed in traditional costume. And the ladies are wearing these hats, which are decorated with flowers and bread, harking back to a celebration of the harvest. And they parade through the town, and there will be horse parades and all kinds of other things going on. And in fact, 1 million people come to this event, which is held over a week in July every 4 years in Tomar. The town is already under preparation because the event is coming up this year, and it's already having a sort of a wash and brush up. And the local shops and restaurants and so on are creating lots and lots of flower decorations, paper flowers. They make them, and the whole town will be decorated. And expect we'll have many distinguished visitors, certainly including the President of Portugal. Nazaré, beautiful beaches, 3 of the best beaches in Portugal, in my view, but also when you've done with the beach, you go up the hill and you go across and over the cliffs onto another side of the beach and see the surfing, world-renowned surfing. I think it's one of the top surfing centers in the world now, and it's a great place to sit and watch people and surfers and just enjoy the glorious weather that it has. Batalha is has the monastery dating back to 1386 and is a World Heritage Site and really well worth a visit. And if you do go to visit, try to get a guided tour because you'll learn so much and it's so interesting. Looking at a few more, we have Alcobaça, also another monastery to visit, also a World Heritage Site, this time dating back to 1153. And I can actually get slightly older than that because if you go and visit Arem Castle, which is not so far from Alcobaça, that dates back to 1136. Now, I read a statistic today that there are over 150 castles in Portugal. Well, I think 250 of those are in Central. I'm absolutely convinced of that. There are castles everywhere you look. But this one is particularly special and particularly worth a visit. We have Óbidos, which is one of the best preserved medieval wall towns in Europe. Again, a wonderful place to visit, even a very nice place to live. And one of the specialities there is to have, I've forgotten what they're called, but it's a chocolate cup filled with a liqueur, and it's just delicious. No other word for it. Do you know what that's called, Carl?
The ginger or ginginha.
Ginger. Thank you. Thank you. Fatima. Fatima, of course, is the site of 5 apparitions by Our Lady to 3 local children in Portugal, and they revealed 3 secrets. And I'll leave that hanging. You can look up the secrets for yourself and learn what that was about. And it's now a world pilgrimage site. It is a very interesting place to go and see. It's often the starting point of pilgrimages, people walking from Fatima to Santiago de Compostela in northern Spain, which I think takes about 3 to 4 weeks, somewhere around that, to walk. Equally, you see people coming in the other direction, having walked from Spain to Fatima. And I'm not sure how comfortable I feel about this, but you will often see them finishing the walk along here on their knees as some form of respect, but I leave that to you. But nevertheless, a very interesting place to visit. And finally on my list is Goligal. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is a very interesting town that comes to life for 1 week every year. The rest of the year, This town is dead as a dodo, but 1 week every year, it is filled with horses and every kind of equine activity you can think of, from dressage to Spanish riding school, where everybody's uptight and nothing is out of place, to gypsies riding around bareback, and you have to fight your way through the horses and the people and the carts and so on. But it really is an amazing place to visit. So what else do we have in Central Portugal? Let's just take a quick look at a few other areas of interest. Rabassal, which is not so far from me, is home of the very famous cheese and also the site of a Roman villa. This weekend, I went to the ceremony of the cheese in Rabassal, and it was very interesting to watch them parade this cheese, which they had made especially for the weekend, which was about 3 feet in diameter. And the parade was led by the cheese judges. I'm not sure what the official name of them is. I'm sure Anna will come up with something on that. Who wear these long brown coats, carry a stave, and they have these big wide-brimmed brown hats, and usually lots of badges on their lapels. And that's followed by 4 Roman centurions carrying the cheese, and they're guarded by other Roman centurions, and they parade around, and then eventually they finish the parade, and then the cheese is honored with all kinds of songs and dance, and even some very, very good drum rhythms and things like that before they cut the cheese and serve it out to the people. That's down the road from me in Central. Not far from Rabassal is Coimbra. Coimbra is one of the best preserved Roman ruins in Europe. They're only in Europe, actually, thinking about it. Particularly for the mosaics and for some of the buildings, and again, well worth a visit. And in fact, I think the senator, or whatever it was, who lived in Rabassal in the villa that I mentioned, the ruins of that village, and he was the senator in charge of everything in Coimbra. Again, really worth visiting. Now I want to talk about schist villages. These are traditional flint stone villages built by groups of people who lived a community lifestyle where they shared their produce and their trade and so on. They always are built, they're always in remote parts and on the hillside, as you can see from this picture. And the other thing that they specialized in was rearing goats, and which they would then trade with the next village, over the hill and far away. And over the years, this has created these trails through the hills from one village to the next. And today, these are wonderful hiking trails. Some of them are easy walking. Some of them are quite difficult. Some of them would take you an hour. Some of them would take you 4 or 5 hours. But very, very interesting places to visit. You don't have to take the hike. You just have to go to one of them, find a little cafe, and sit and enjoy the peace and the tranquility that these places have to offer. They really are interesting. I think we have 7 schist villages in Portugal, and I think they're unique. Sorry, 7 schist villages in Central, and I think they're actually unique to Central. Very, very interesting. In fact, we do have a member, I don't know whether she's online tonight, but we do have a member who has recently bought a house in a schist village and is working on restoring it to its back to its original traditions. Now, Mira de Air, again in Central Portugal, has stunning caves discovered in 1947. And you can walk down into these thick caves. They are colossal. The colors, the stalactites, the stalagmites, the water running through, it's just amazing. And I think it's actually one of Portugal's best kept secrets, because not many people seem to know about it. But again, highly recommend to take a visit, and a great place to bring visitors. And talking of secrets, of course, we have our secret river beaches. Paul talked about the sea and the beaches and so on. Well, this is our secret in Central Portugal. We have these river beaches. I'm not going to tell you where they are. You have to find out for yourself. We don't tell anyone because we don't want crowds of people coming up from the Algarve and things like that and spoiling our peace and tranquility. But it is very pleasant to bathe in fresh water, no issues with tides, undercurrents, or anything like that. And I believe it's better for you to swim in fresh water than it is in salt water. River beaches are very popular in Portugal. You'll even find them in the mountains because they can just take a river and divert it and create a swimming area and so on. And always with some interesting small little cafes nearby. So what else about Central Portugal is there? Well, most towns hold at least one festival every year. There will be local music, dance, marching bands. These are often in competition. Crafts, food, wine, and so on will be available to buy. And even if you stay long enough, there'll be the odd rock band. There's hardly a weekend goes by in Central Portugal when you can't find one of these festivals happening near to where you might live. Most towns have farmers markets selling local produce, crafts and hardware. Some are weekly and some are daily. Driving is a real pleasure in Central Portugal. Our roads are in really good repair and we have amazingly light traffic. I've said this many times, but it's not unusual for me to drive even on a highway for 20 kilometers and not see another car. It's back to those old days of driving when you go out and you meander around and get lost a little bit and buy an ice cream and so on. It's a real pleasure driving in Central Portugal. Same can be said about walking and cycling. There's an abundance of walking and cycling tracks. That there are many groups available, or just meander on your own. We can be a little bit hilly, so electric bicycles are often the norm here. I mention this because it's often missed when we talk about Portugal. Actually visiting the cinema here is a real pleasure. It's inexpensive. All the movies, all the popular movies are in English. And most of the cinemas are inside shopping malls, and it's possible to buy a ticket to watch a movie and have dinner in one of the restaurants in the malls for, and it might cost you 12, 13 euros, something like that for the entire night. But it really is a pleasure to go to the cinema here. They actually have an interval, and they don't mind if you go outside and buy an ice cream from another store. They don't get upset about that. It's as I said, it's a very pleasant experience. We love to grow olives and get them pressed into our own oil, and it's a very popular activity here, sometimes out of necessity. It's not unusual to have to find olive trees in your house. If you buy something rurally, you'll most likely have a little bit of land where there will be some olive trees. You can pick those, then you can share your collection with someone else so that you have enough to take down to the local press. Cost you a few euros, and they will press those olives and give you back virgin olive oil for little or no cost, and it's very, very good. We eat seasonally, very little processed food. Fast food is not a thing in Central. It just doesn't happen. Sadly, sometimes I think. So Central is much more traditional part of Portugal. We're not swamped by tourists. We do get tourists, of course we get tourists. All the towns I've mentioned will have tourists, but they're tourists who are interested in the culture and the history, and they're not here to drink and be rowdy and so on, as you can sometimes get in other parts of the country, shall we say. Just like Paul said, we have the same Portuguese people here. Yes, they're warm and friendly. Yes, they'll go out of their way to help you. Expats are seen as a very good thing coming into Portugal because the population, the indigenous population, is declining. Sadly, young people are leaving Portugal. Expats are coming in, they're restoring properties, they're buying properties, they're employing local services, they're paying taxes. And so that's seen as a very positive thing in Portugal. And I don't think you can find a more warm and friendly person than the Portuguese. And this final point, that we do take time to live in Central Portugal. Somebody said on one of our webinars a while ago, you never see anybody walking around with a Starbucks in their hand. Of course not, that would be silly. We want a coffee and it's going to take an hour and a half to have a coffee. That's what we'll do. And we'll spend 80 cents on that coffee in the cafe, and the cafe won't be bothered in the least by you sitting there for as long as you want and enjoying your coffee. We do take time to live, and in many cases, that's more important than anything else in Central Portugal. Certainly, it's not a profit-driven area. There's lots more I could talk about. I could easily do another 10 towns. I could easily find another 10 places of interest. But I think I've made my point, and I just summarize. So Algarve, yes, it has beautiful beaches, golf courses, marinas, and very nice people like Paul. Yes, it has all that, but it's not very traditional and doesn't have much in the way of culture. There's a strong reliance and is perhaps over-dependent on tourism. And that was seen through the pandemic in particular. So in my view, and this is a personal view, but Algarve is a great place to holiday, but not to live. Okay? Central is much more going on. It is traditional and steeped in culture and history. There's very little difference in the weather, as I've shown, but of course it does cool down at night in Central, so sleeping is quite pleasant. And of course the value for money across all aspects, but particularly when it comes to buying property, your dollar, your pound, your euro will go a lot further in Central Portugal when it comes to buying property than it will in the Algarve. So indeed, why would you live anywhere else? That's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Very detailed, very comprehensive, and a great job there. Both gentlemen, I think, deserve applause and acknowledgement for excellent presentations. Thank you very much, everybody. And also probably a box of wine from the Portuguese government.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, in doing such a great job in presenting both areas. And I've added new things to my list of things to see and do in Portugal. I'm sure other people have as well. So regardless of who wins tonight, really great sets of, really great information and a whetting of the appetite for Portugal in general. And points were made that really that sing from the rooftops how great it is to come to Portugal generally, and obviously some specifics there, and a little bit of controversy stirred up as well. Good evening to you, Jack Polly. I think I need to mute you up. You might be coming through loud and clear into the webinar, but great to see you tonight. We're going to go to a few questions now, and I think I will welcome some hands up, open mic questions. But let me go through some of the things that came up in the chat. A few points of order. And some of those more controversial things I think were more evident in the second presentation this evening.
No.
Yes. It was a bit of a sort of good cop, bad cop, wasn't it, for Portugal, I think. All right. Excellent. Thank you, Laura, for your comments. We'll get into some of those in more detail. Laurie's asking if we're saying hi to Connie. Is Hank at home pouting due to his loss? He hasn't lost. He certainly hasn't lost, and we'll be back for the semi-final with Trevor as Lisbon and Porto and the North go head-to-head in the next semi-final of this. So I think maybe Hank is just resting between bouts. And good evening to you, Connie, as well. Great videos. Denise would have liked a commentary on the first one, but we had a lovely commentary on the second there. Congratulations to Stuart, who's just managed to open a bank account, which is quite a big deal. That's quite an achievement, and we'll talk probably more about bank accounts in the Dream Team session at 9 o'clock. Point of order from Anna. Cabo de Roca near Sintra. Cascais is the western point of the continent of Portugal and continental Europe, not Sagres there, down in the south and on the southwestern tip of Portugal. So thank you very much for that. Question then for both gentlemen. Let's go to you first, Paul, on this. From Susie, we'll be moving to Portugal from California. So coming from experience, we are concerned about drought and wildfire. Can you comment on these two with respect to your location? So drought and wildfire is an issue, of course, all over the country. How is it in the Algarve, Paul?
It's a problem, as you say, all over Portugal. One of the main areas of fire risk is in Monchique, which is sort of the middle, sort of west part of Portugal. But I think the government have been really trying to educate people in the preparing your land so that it doesn't go on fire. So prevention is better than cure, really. And I think the sources, the bombardiers are well trained. They are everywhere and they are very keen. And if you have a concern, I wouldn't have to worry. We had the big fire about 4 years ago, and we had one recently last year near Faro, but it was controlled very, very quickly. And I think that the people who are now far more qualified, especially down in the Algarve, we've probably got more fire stations than anywhere else because we need them here if we're called to go to a fire. So yeah, it is a risk, I won't deny it, but I think it's now more controlled risk.
Thank you, Paul. Let's go to Jerry, because of course, back in 2017, the worst of the fires, it was a grievous year for fires. And I think that changed things, didn't it, for the country? What would you say on this point?
Yes, it
Drought
did
and
indeed.
wildfire, Jerry.
It did. Well, drought, I think, is not so much a problem in this part of Portugal. We're close to our reservoirs and so on, and we get enough rain. And generally speaking, drought's not a huge problem here, unlike the Algarve. Fires, on the other hand, can be, thanks to the eucalyptus tree. Thanks to the Australians, Astrid has claimed responsibility for that and apologized already. Portuguese were encouraged to grow eucalyptus trees for the manufacture of paper, and unfortunately, a lot of these have now got out of hand. The landowners may have passed away, or they're not able to maintain the land, and whoever inherits it is not interested. They might not live in the area anymore, so that has been a problem. But after that fire that you mentioned, which was a tragic fire, I think 27 people died. They have done a lot to improve the situation. Everywhere we go now, we see fire breaks have been cut. We've seen lots of areas where they've completely taken out all the trees. And actually, we've not had a major problem since that dreadful time in 2017. It only affects these eucalyptus trees because they're so flammable. You do surprisingly see houses surrounded by these trees, and with the benefit of knowledge, I'd say don't go anywhere near buying a house like that. But once you're away from it, it's not a problem in terms of safety. And we do still get fires, and we will continue to get fires. And I don't think that climate warming is just going to make it worse. The eucalyptus are particularly flammable. Well, I happen to live in an area which is mostly cork trees, and we don't have an issue whatsoever. But they seem to be much better at handling it in the last few years than they have previously. And as Paul said, whether they've increased the resources of the bombers and the techniques and building these fire breaks and things like that, I think has made a big difference.
Thank you for that. That was a concern for Susie and for Kevin. Thanks, Paul and Jerry, on that. Great presentation, Paul said, Gail. However, it's a great place to visit from the central area, we think. She's adding there. And then back to you, Paul. It looks like the nature in Algarve is beautiful. Gail, obviously, realizing that from your lovely photos, as she said. But can you also say a bit about the cultural offerings? Now, I think Jerry went in quite hard on this, accusing the Algarve of being quite cultureless, it seemed. What would you say to that, Paul?
I'm surprised he said that, having lived in the Algarve, and especially where he lived, because is not the only place that has castles. We've got a few castles. There's a place called Sills and other places that have all this culture. One place that is left and abandoned is Faro. And Faro has so much history. It's untrue, really. But what I have to take Jerry to task about, he was talking about property and how cheap it is to buy in central Portugal. I think the only difference is if you buy a property in central Portugal and you've sit in it for 5 years, its amount it's gone up will be very little. If you buy a property in the Algarve, the average rate of things going up is around about 8% a year. So not only are you living in the best place in Portugal, you're making money on the property that you live in.
Nice counter. Very good. Okay.
Can I come back on that?
Yes,
I agree with you, Paul. I agree with you. I do regret that I sold the house I had in the Algarve. It would be worth a lot more now than I sold it for. I agree with that. But isn't all this relative? Isn't it relative that if you buy a house that's costing, €500,000 and then you want to sell it and it's risen in price, but how much are you going to spend on the next house in order to be able to improve on that situation? So
I'm going to step in there. A point well made,
some
Jerry.
relevance there.
Yes, you may want to come back later, Paul, in summing up. We will have a little summing up from both gentlemen. We're squeezing as many comments and questions as we can between now and then, of course, the voting to see who will be leaving us this evening from the great debate, this competition to find the best place to live in Portugal. Anna likes Orang. Interesting. And Nunu's here. Another point of order, Jerry. Portugal's first capital was Guimarães, not Coimbra. And Portugal's first name was I guess yes, there are cities who do seem to make this claim. That occurred to me when you first said that. Condado Portucalense, and Guimarães was its capital. That's the first name of Portugal. More accurately, Condado Portucalense. It wasn't a country, and Portugal. With the name Portugal, Coimbra was the first capital on that basis. So yes, we can.
So was I right or was I wrong with all of that, Carl? I've lost the plot now.
You were right on the basis that when it was called Portugal, it was the first capital.
I see. Oh, forgive me, but when it was called something else.
Yes, I'm just sharing information from our.
Yes.
From our
the word. How pedantic can you get?
Canimbriga, another point of order. That's Anna's coming in there with that as well. And Canimbriga is amazing, says Gail, and much still to be uncovered. Schist villages are amazing too. Gail, I think, already a convert for Central, right? Safe to say, with views from the winding roads leading to the high cellars of Portugal. So much to see from so many places. Why no mention of Sintra? Well, that's Trevor's territory, Sintra. And thank you, James, for coming to our aid there and answering that question for Laura. Gail loving Guimarães as well on our trip in January, February. Loved it too. Lovely posada to stay in there with amazing food and staff too. So Gail liking Central, but being torn towards the north and the Algarve as well to visit. Don't agree, said Jack Polly some way through that. Algarve is an amazing place to live. I prefer it even in the winter. Yeah, and Laura did have something to say about the air conditioning point as well. Each to their own on that, of course, and whether or not you sleep on which tog factor you prefer. Excellent presentation, says Susie. Thank you both. Nice presentations, both of you. Can I vote for both, says Connie. No, you cannot. Somebody will be leaving this evening. Brilliant presentation, Jerry. Lots of food for thought. That's absolutely true. I mean, food for thought, information, very, very inspiring and stimulating, both of you tonight. Great presentations. Anna says, I would like to be Portuguese. Oh, hold on a minute. You are. You say they are nice people. Fantastic presentation, said Andrew as well. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. And thanks for your comments from Jennifer. Gail, we are very much looking forward to being there. So it's great that people are speaking out, and there's crosstalk inside the meeting chat as well. Great presentation, says Allegra. Missed the beginning part and looking forward to watching on YouTube. Somebody asked earlier on, Paul, in which town you've settled in the Algarve. Could you answer that?
We settled near Alvo, which is more or less west central. The reason for that was that across Algarve is not very much, and from where we are, we can travel to the east or the west very quickly with the A22. So it's a central place to be. Alvo is not the busiest of places. It's an old fishing village, and it's just a beautiful place, and we love it.
So Alvo for you. Same question being asked by Randy of you, Jerry. More specifically, which part of Central Portugal?
I live near a small town called Alveazra. We live a little bit out in the sticks. We're about 4 kilometers from Alveazra. But as I look out my window now over my computer screen, I have beautiful views of the valley with the vineyard in front and reaching across the hills in the background, and no neighbors, just green, green, green every window. And it's lovely. It's lovely.
Perfect.
Yeah, and Algarve is roughly halfway between Tomar and Coimbra.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Going back to the controversy around where the capital has been, even Rio de Janeiro was a Portuguese capital for some time. I think that's when the king.
Come on.
Yes, right. So, Jerry. Okay.
I think that I don't actually think that Portugal has a capital written into its constitution or whatever it is that they might have. I think the capital was decided based on where the king was living at the time.
Yeah.
And if the king got up and moved and brought all his officers with him, then that next place would become the capital because the king happened to be there. I think that's the way it came about. But I'll still argue that Coimbra is the first capital of Portugal.
Yes, even in Morocco for a little while when they stopped off on the way to Brazil, maybe. Okay, no, that's not true, everybody, before that goes into the gossip. Allegra would love to find an adventure seeker with whom to visit all those wonderful towns, many of which you detailed, both of you there. Traveled worldwide and lived in numerous countries on several continents, but have not done enough exploring in Portugal. Allegra, a great place to make that invitation, of course, would be on the Expats Portugal forum. And what a lovely idea to meet up with people and travel together. Superb. If anyone wants to put their hand up to ask a question and unmute themselves, that would be great as well. Jennifer says, Jerry, thanks to your advice about exploring Tomar. We will be staying there for a week this summer and are very much looking forward to exploring your town. Are you going to be there in July when you're seeing the Tabuleiros, wonderful Tabuleiros? It is this year, isn't it, Jerry?
It is this year, and if you're there for that, you'll be lucky if you've got a hotel room for that, or if you haven't booked already, make sure you're not clashing with that because hotel rooms will be like gold dust. Yeah,
if that's not already happened. Brian is asking a great question here. Does Central have good public transportation, especially to get to Lisbon and to Porto? Let's ask you both, Paul and Jerry. Jerry first on public transport.
Yes, I did actually have a note to mention that, and then I passed by it. Trains and coaches are abundant in Central Portugal. There are basically two types of trains. There are the trains that hop from small town to small town, and then there are the intercity trains that are express trains that do exactly that. They're intercity. From where I live, if I go to an intercity train station, which I sometimes do it in Troncamento, which is about 20 minutes drive from me, then I can get a fast train into Lisbon. I think it's just under 1 hour into Lisbon. By the same token, I can drive to Pombal, which is about probably a 30-minute drive, and I can get the fast train to Porto, which is about 1 hour and 30 minutes. Trains are very comfortable, very inexpensive to travel, especially if you're over a certain age, because you get 50% discount. And they're clean, comfortable, usually have a cafe, usually have bathroom facilities. And then there's the national buses. I don't have much experience of those. Carl, I think you've used the buses a few times.
Absolutely. Yeah, the coaches, the buses.
And I'm hearing they're just as good as the trains, and Wi-Fi and bathrooms and everything else.
Yeah, thank you for that, Paul. They haven't got an airport in Central Portugal, have they, Paul?
Oh, really? Jerry didn't mention that, did he?
We don't like the noise pollution.
Very good.
Yeah.
Paul?
So we leave the airports outside. Where I live, I'm 1 hour and 20 minutes from Lisbon Airport, and actually I'm flying out of Porto Airport next week, and it'll be I'll leave 2 hours. I'll leave 2 hours for that journey.
Yeah, well, that's not so bad, is it? But a nice counterpunch there, though. Paul, public transport in the Algarve.
Well, you've got to remember the Algarve is set up for tourism, so public transport is priority for Algarve. Every form of transport is exceedingly cheap. You can get a bus from anywhere from say Porto up to, if you wanted to go to Lisbon, for €8. I mean, it's for nothing. Buses are everywhere. You can get a 3-day or a 5-day ticket. There's also, if you're in some of the resorts, you can go across them for €1 ferry to a little island. So transport is probably serviced better by the Algarve than probably anywhere, I would think, due to the tourism.
Right. Oh, yeah, maybe outside. I'm sure Trevor might have something to say about that, but certainly take your point. And on that note, Laura in the Algarve bought a flight from Faro to Porto, and it was even cheaper than the train with a trolley and a personal bag. Ryanair charged her €33 to fly from Faro to Porto. That's amazing. And Wilson somebody was asking about discounts. Is that only for residents for the elder discount? I'm going to call it. No, it's for everybody. So thank you very much for answering that, Anna. Let's go to Laurie now. Do you want to unmute Laurie and ask your question? Is it for both of the gentlemen this evening?
Actually, no, it's for Jerry.
Okay, Jerry's on the spot now. Laurie, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Laurie.
In a breakout group for one of Hank and Connie's events, Jerry, I suggested I look at Tomar, and I really did. And honestly, that's what I was set on. I don't move till November, so I have some time because I don't want my pets to melt. I'm in Phoenix, so I'm not allowed to travel with them until November. But the company that is helping me with the rental suggested Laria because they said it's much easier to find accommodation. They said the public transportation is good. There is also the medieval history. First 2 years of college, I was a medievalist, and Jerry knew that. One of the reasons he mentioned Tomar. I'd like to get his input on the two places.
There you go. Very specific. And you did mention Lydia, didn't you, Jerry?
I did.
Oh, you did. I missed it. Sorry.
Tomar is smaller than Lyria. Tomar is quite compact. It's everything's within walking distance in Tomar. Lyria is bigger, broader. It's a lot more sort of spread out. I'm not sure it has a heart. Somebody else might know Lyria better than I do, but I'm not sure there's a sort of a central point that you'd call the heart. Whereas in Tomar, definitely, the Republic Square is the place. But Laurie, I think you should see both, and they're not so far from each other. You'll definitely find a wider range of property in Lyria, but that's because it's that much bigger.
Okay. Yeah, well, and I looked at Laria when it was recommended, and I was still leaning toward Tomar, but I just thought because Laria hadn't come up, so I thought I'd just get your input. Actually, you may remember from our earlier conversation, I wanted the walkability. And so I think Tomar is still the place, even if getting a rental is a little more difficult. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Laurie. It's hilly over in Lyria, and thank you very much for
it is hilly, Laurie. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just take a couple more here from the chat because I see it's 20-9. Dream Team at 9. This has been a long but very informative webinar. Really good information this evening, so we can permit the two gentlemen to have talked for so long and given us so much fantastic information. But a decision will have to be made. The poll will be unleashed soon after we've heard from Kevin, who says, I've seen mention of restriction or even removal of the D7 visa program due to the large influx of expats and the resulting inflationary effect on locals, especially housing. I hope this isn't true. I don't think it is, Kevin, and I suggest you tune in at 9 o'clock to ask the Queen of the Visas that very question. The last one this evening from this particular session, which I think is a very interesting question that's going to go to both Paul and Jerry. As we all know, says Stuart, it doesn't matter what men think in most relationships. The woman's happiness is what puts down roots. What do the women in both gents' lives love or hate about where they live? What a fantastic question to conclude on this evening. Let's start with Paul first.
Put me on the spot then, go on. I think from a woman's point of view, and I think this is important, is the safety. The safety of living here, being able to go out on their own without the fear of problem with the other side of the world. And I think also, as you get older, one of the biggest worries for women especially is the medical side of how are they going to get treatment. And I must admit, from my own wife's point of view, this was a big concern for her. But we have private insurance, which you have to have for the D7 because we've gone through that process. And, you know, it's a world apart from the public, and it's not the price that you would think it is. It's very cheap compared to, especially America, but even to the UK. And the service from the private thing is fantastic. There's no waiting, it's quick, and it's like going into a hotel. We have a company called HPA, which are quite well known in Portugal, especially in the Algarve, and their hospitals are fantastic. And that's the only thing that I find that had the concerns for my wife when she came here. Of course, she picked the house. I had the choice.
Very good. Thought so. Denise and Laura, liking what you're saying there. Thank you very much around the safety issues. Thank you. Jerry, over to you on that question.
Yes, I think I can answer that. First of all, from an Expats Portugal point of view, we have lots and lots of single women as members with enormous interest in Portugal. They've either already moved here or they want to move here, and it's because of the safety and the record of safety that we have here in Portugal. We also don't have, I personally have never seen any kind of racism whatsoever, or indeed any other prejudices. We have a lot of same-sex couples also as part of our membership. I think sort of drilling down a little bit between Algarve and Central, I think that the lady in my life does like Algarve and likes to spend time there, but it's not so far that she can't go down and catch up with a couple of her friends. And can you believe she sometimes goes there to get her hair done? And so, you know, nowhere in Portugal is too far away. So she can go and get her sort of Algarve fix, if you like, 2 or 3 times a year. And I think otherwise, you know, any part of Portugal, I think, you know, that we're talking about tonight is safe and secure, regardless, male or female. It's, you know, there's just we don't even think about it anymore. Perfect. I think.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Jerry. Great question, Stuart. Now, you've got about 30 seconds each just to round off as we get the poll ready. I think Astrid is rolling out the voting machine now from the cupboard where it's been kept since it's been repaired since the last time we used it. So to you first, Paul, if you could give us 10, 20 or 30 seconds on why people should choose the Algarve tonight.
Well, I think it's quite interesting that the only way that Jury could promote the Central was to try and find fault with the Algarve. That weakens his argument in my mind. You know, it's your choice. You have to come where you think is right for you. We love the Algarve. I think from what Jerry's shown you and what I've shown you, it's 2 different people. What you want to be, what you want. And I think people who will go to the Central will go there, and people who will go to the Algarve will go to the Algarve. And I think the choice is yours. We think the Algarve is the best, but that's our personal opinion.
Thank you very much. A point well made. Thank you, Paul. And the votes are happening now in front of our very eyes. I hope everyone can see this. This is exciting stuff. Jerry, as it's happening on screen there, reigning champion. A very brief roundup.
First of all, I'd like to respond to Paul. Tonight's debate is between Central and Algarve. I'm representing Central, so of course I'm going to stand up for Central, and of course I'm going to tell you what I believe is not good about Algarve. That was, I believe, the theme of the debate tonight. But I think, you know, what Paul said at the very beginning is so true, that you do need to come here and experience it for yourselves and check out the areas, and don't commit to a property until you're very satisfied that it's the right property. How many times have you, Carl, found that you fell in love with the place, and then the next day you found somewhere else that you fell in love with, and so on and so on. And I think that happens a lot. There's somewhere for everyone in Portugal. But if you know my argument, if you want value for money, Central, and you want history and culture, plenty to do, Central is the place.
Well, for those reasons, it would appear Central is winning with an 87% participation of those here this evening.
Carl, based on my calculations, there's 5 people that haven't voted, because there's 4 of us staff.
I'm one. Yeah.
And we've got 43 people
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be right
So-
for me to vote on this occasion. If
Pardon?
it wouldn't be right for me to vote, as you've said there.
No, you're a staff.
Absolutely. So come on, folks.
So
The
come
last
on.
few votes, can we have those? I actually don't think they're going to make a big difference looking at the swingometer, as I have have the special.
No, have you voted? Anna, have you voted?
Yes, votes have been made. It's not going to change anything. There has been 92% participation, which is more than you can say for most elections.
I've
think.
voted.
Outstanding participation, everybody. And no question, the machine worked tonight. And I can tell you now that Jerry
Okay.
Lawler, representing Central Portugal, is through to the final. Well done, Jerry. Commiserations to you, Paul.
Well done, Paul.
70% of the vote to you, Jerry, and 30 to you, Paul. First words to the runner-up, then, Paul.
Well, best of congratulations to Jerry.
Yeah.
A good talk by all means. Can I just go back to one of the questions that was asked earlier regarding fire? There is a website called Fogos, FOGOS.pt, and that gives you all the information about fires and where they are. Quite a good website to look at.
Thank you. But in defeat, still offering public service announcements. What a gentleman you are. Fogos.pt. I've put that into the chat there so that people can see what Paul was talking about. Champ, how'd you feel?
I'm just thinking, I've got to do all this again now.
Yes, you do. And do you feel like you've peaked? I mean, where can you go?
No, because I think the next one will be easy peasy, right? Because, who's going to argue with, no, everybody would want Central over Lisbon or Porto area. So I think that will be, as I said earlier, I thought this was the one, this was the important one. So
you are through. And we're looking at, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Astrid, we're looking at on the 1st of June, the Lisbon versus Porto semi-final.
Yes.
Is that right? And then on the 6th of July, a day before my birthday, so the drinking can begin on, if that's correct. Thursday, the 6th of July will be the final. Is that correct?
Yes, the first Saturday of the month.
first Saturday of the month. No, first Thursday.
Thursday, yes.
Yeah. So Jerry has got quite a schedule, quite a lot of time in which to train and prepare, psych himself up, and maybe even join forces with Paul behind the scenes and get the expert help of Astrid again tonight. Fantastic stuff.
Well, I have to say, Astrid's help has been invaluable to me tonight. I couldn't have done it without her.
Well,
Thank you,
congratulations,
Astrid.
Jerry. Good job. And thank you, everybody. I mean, it has been a long session, but so information rich, and I'm sure people will want to watch it again just to see some of those wonderful places they can visit in Portugal. So great job, Paul. Thank you, Jerry. Well done. Congratulations. Both winners, of course, tonight. And Portugal, the big winner.
Portugal's the winner. Portugal is the winner.
Go Algarve. Go.
How was California, Anna? Normally we're talking about Americans moving to Portugal. Let's talk.
California is wonderful. It was a good surprise. But the next person that talks to me about the wind in Cascais, I'm going to scream because San Francisco is much windier. So.
Really? So even stronger feijoada over in San Francisco. Okay, fair enough.
I just need to say I voted for Algarve. I love Central Portugal. My family is from Central Portugal. I go there often. I love Orem, and it's my hometown from my father. Yeah. But, all Portuguese go to the Algarve for holidays, and Algarve, it's really amazing. It's not just tourism. You need to know it's quality of life as well. So I voted for Algarve. Wonderful. Go, Paul.
Okay. And you're not moving to California, are you, Anna? Is that's not?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's nice, but you're staying in.
And I went to Yosemite, which is truly amazing. So it was like a big experience for me.
Oh, how lovely to hear that. Yeah,
and I can rely why Californian people move to Portugal. It's very similar in certain parts.
Okay.
So it's like that.
Yeah. And thank you for being here tonight with your corrections and pronunciation techniques. Always appreciate that.
You're wrong about the Algarve, Anna, but apart from that.
No. It's beautiful. It's also historical, and it's also a lot of concerts, music. It's also Portuguese.
In the summer,
Anna.
in the
No, you need to go there on holidays
In
in
de- in
December.
January.
No, in December, if you go, we have 2 holidays in December, which is the 1st and the 8th.
Yeah.
And you should go there. There's less people and the weather is really nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know a lot about Portugal,
Right.
Central Portugal, and I love it. But I also love Algarve. So.
But you like to go to the Algarve for holidays, right?
Yeah, but not only summer. Not only summer.
Come on,
holidays.
champ. Come on.
Sorry. I'm still in that mood. I'm still in that.
He's
sort
in
of
bullish
fighting
mood. He's in bullish
It's
mood.
not a problem. My favorite part is Cascais, and after Cascais, it's the north of Portugal. So it's like not even the second or the third. So it's
Well, I think Hank and Connie should make a trip to Guimarães because that's going to help them turbocharge their chances.
yeah.
To get out of Porto and head around. And I was in Ponte Lima at the weekend. What a beautiful town that is as well. So Hank and Connie got a little bit of work to do before the 1st of June. If you get out beyond Porto, you can sing the praises of the north, and you'll be up against Trevor representing Lisbon, of course, which will have I think a Sintra and Cascais involved there too. 6 minutes to go until the dream team. The code has been put into the chat there for those who are joining us from 9 with the Queen of the Visas and the rest of the dream team lineup panel, and we'll speak to them about all matters moving to Portugal, as well as their pets, and that special question of the evening, which we conclude with. Jerry, Astrid, what else to add before we go?
There's quite a few things. I've shared the link a few times for the 9 o'clock session in the chat. If you haven't gotten it, please dart me an email at astrid@expatsportugal.com and I'll send that through to you. I've also shared the link for Hank and Connie Social Saturday night. So that's at 9 o'clock Lisbon time. So please come along and have some fun with Hank and Connie. Again, if you want the link and you missed it in the chat, email me at this address and I'll get it through. I do know that someone was asking before about the golden visa ending, and yes, it apparently is ending, but it is still valid now. And we've actually got Holborn joining us at 9 o'clock, and they're going to be presenting a couple of investment opportunities to really fast track any kind of golden visa opportunity that you can get before it all is over. So I think there's a few weeks left, but they're going to showcase some fast track opportunities. So don't miss that if you are interested in the golden visa.
And that's at 9 in a few minutes. They're going to
So they'll be coming on board. I think it's Henry who's going to be joining us and going to show us some opportunities, and they're standing by for people if they want to make the most of the opportunity. So it's very, very exciting.
All right, thanks, Astrid.
Oh, and next week, so if buying a new investment for your golden visa is not what you're after, then next week our special guests are our architect friends from Crad Studios. So they'll be talking about the process of building a new home here in Portugal, but also renovating an older house and the estimated cost that you can expect in Portugal. So if you are looking at building or renovating or doing anything with a home here, that's the webinar not to miss next Thursday night.
Superb. Jerry, did you want to add something? I think you were leaning forward to do so.
Everything the lady just said was what I wanted to add. And I'll also thank you, Paul. Good battle. Well done. I'm not sure who won the bet, but I'll buy dinner next time. Thanks, Carl, and thanks, Astrid, for all your assistance. It's just wonderful the way you do those videos for me and so on. It was great. Thank you.
Where is that dinner going to be? No, hold on. You don't have to answer that. Okay.
It's only going to be in Central.
Okay. Paul's going to drive up for that. Great job.
I'm already saving the 12 euros.
Great stuff. And thanks, everybody, for your questions and commitment tonight, being part of it.
Good fun. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
All right. And see you in a few minutes on the Dream Team session. Bye for now.
Or we'll see you in Portugal. Thank you.
Yes, bye for now. Bye.
Bye.
Go Algarve. Go Algarve.